Welcome to Easy Style with Sammy. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each episode, I invite a friend, family member, colleague, or just someone I've met on this journey called life to come and share their personal style and approach to business, parenting, life, and everything in between. You'll hear motivational and inspirational stories that will help you refine and build your own personal style. Remember, style is easy when it comes from within. Hey friends, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jennifer Schell to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I always start off by kind of how I know my guests, and in this case, we don't know each other. And not only that, we haven't really had much of a conversation at all. But what I love about your story and how you reached out to me was just really the feeling of taking what's thrown at you and overcoming it to still do things that maybe you never thought were possible, but, light you up and kind of bring you joy now. So I'm really excited for this conversation. I know that our listeners are going to love it too. So before we kind of jump into some of all of that, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Dr. Jennifer Schell. I've been a chiropractor for almost 24 years. I specialize in clinical nutrition. So that just means we use diet modifications, supplements, and plant-based oils for therapeutic benefit. So and I'm a mom, teenage boys, married, and I have 2 jobs, and so I'm busy, but I just really want to inspire women because I pivoted, and I just really think it's so important to maybe hear somebody else's story and realize you can do it too.
I love that. That's why we're here. So this is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with things kind of happen in our lives that we can't control. I mean, that is the only constant is change, right?
Yes.
And so there was a big, I don't want to say big thing because I don't even know your whole story, but there was something that kind of impacted you with regards to how you showed up for people publicly and in person. Yeah. So why don't you share a little bit about your vocal cord issue and kind of what that looks like and how that affected you?
Yeah, sure. So when I was in chiropractic school, I started noticing like I thought my chest was tight. Like I felt like I couldn't get a deep breath. Like, am I anxious? What's wrong? And I just kind of lived with it. And when I graduated chiropractic school, came back home from Chicago, my mentor was like, Jen, something's wrong with your vocal cords. Like, you should go get it looked at. Maybe you just have polyps. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just go by myself to the ENT, ear, nose, throat doctor. He did a scope, and he says to me, I'm just sitting there thinking I just have polyps. And he says, yeah, you actually have a neurological issue that causes your vocal cords to spasm. It's never going to get better. It could get worse, and there's nothing you can do about it except Botox injections through your throat into your vocal cords every 3 months. And I was like, what? What just happened? Like, I had just gotten married, just coming into practice, and I was like, this is mind-blowing. So for about 15 years, I traveled the country. I did every holistic, integrative thing I could. The condition is called spasmodic dysphonia. And right now, like in the news, RFK Jr., who is always speaking and everybody's like, why is his voice so gravelly? He has the same thing. So I struggled, and I just forced myself to work, seeing patients, and people would say to me like, oh, are you nervous? Oh, are you sad? Oh, are you sick? Like all the things. And it was very introverted. So finally, after like 15 years, I started doing the Botox shots because it does give me relief. Like right now, this is like the best that it gets. And I have just recently had a treatment. So this is as good as it gets. Usually it gets kind of, sounds more strangled. Okay. So what happened though during this time is I didn't even realize it, but I distanced myself from like my friends because I hated using the phone. I wouldn't call to order food. I wouldn't call my patients. Like, no, like I can't do that. So it would literally cause panic attacks. So then I realized also then I was like not doing classes like I used to love, kind of teaching and doing stuff, and I totally stopped. So fast forward, and if you'd like to stop me at any point.
Oh no, you're great. No, keep on going.
Okay. So then I started getting Botox, but like I still realized that, and I didn't realize this until COVID. I was sitting at home, our clinic was closed down for like 6 weeks, and I just realized like I wasn't living my truth, like I was hiding behind my voice and using that as a crutch and as an excuse. And from that was hard to swallow. And I thought, okay, like stop this. Like, who cares? So what it turned into was I figured out that if I live from a place of service and of purpose, that I can talk in front of anybody and I don't introvert. So I was like, what is this? Why am I all of a sudden able to do this? And it's literally because I'm extroverting off of myself. Like, it's not about you, Jen. It's about what you need to communicate. And it changed everything. So since then, I've just been on this mission to just really trying to help women, but anybody, like whatever thing you think is holding you back, it's probably just you stopping yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm like, here's a little tough love. Stop making excuses and do it.
Yeah. I think this is so interesting, your perspective on this, because just like you were saying, like your experience was something that is physical, that people could see or hear or experience alongside of you, right? Like it's not, I think for most of us, the things that hold us back are internal mindset or things that people can't physically see. So, in some ways, I mean, they're both challenging to overcome. In some ways, yours is more difficult because it's not something you can just kind of hide away. So I'm curious, like, what is there something, now that when you were starting to kind of get back out there and start doing more speaking or teaching more classes or feeling more comfortable talking with your patients, was there something that you just kind of told yourself? Like, did you kind of pep yourself up, or like, how did you kind of switch that to be able to kind of re-enter into those things?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good question. So at first, like, I really didn't. Like, I was so excited about this newfound, like, skill that I didn't really think, like, much about it. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, look at me. I'm out there doing it. And I was at this lady's house and I was teaching a class, and normally, like, whenever anybody comes in that I don't know, I'll tell them, hey, listen, I have a vocal cord issue, just ignore it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And this lady had come in late, and I'm talking. She stops the class and says, whoa, what's wrong with your voice? And I was like,
serious?
Sammy. So literally I was like, I'm sorry, you missed my little intro. Yeah, I've got a vocal cord issue. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm here to educate you. And she doesn't leave it alone. And she goes, does it hurt? And I'm like, well, I'm slightly uncomfortable, but like, it's not a big deal. No, it's not hurting. Well, I can't stand listening to you because it sounds like it hurts. And she just goes on this huge thing. And before, literally, I would have probably started crying and like ran out of that woman's house. But I literally was like, listen, who cares about my voice right now? And I kind of said it with like nicely. I was like, listen, we're really not here to be worried about my voice. I'm here because I want to educate you and help you.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, right? And I just kept on and kept teaching. And after I got in the car and I was like, holy cow. Like, I just did that and didn't introvert, didn't cry, and also stayed on purpose. So
Yeah.
So it isn't like wait, this is really important. Something that I do when I do notice, like if I have to make a phone call and just all the habits pop in, I will literally just force myself to do it. There's a really good book by Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule. Okay.
Yep.
So the 5-second rule, literally, I will get in my head like, oh, you're having a bad voice day. You shouldn't be doing, don't call. Wait till tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And I just count down and then I just dial it. And there is no thought, and then I'm committed. So the biggest thing that I can say is, even when things are getting in your way, you just have to do it. So you got to do it scared, and you need to just do it anyway. And then once you jump in, you realize, like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. But I think the key element here is what you said at the beginning is, what helped you shift was being that you decided that your core value, your core feelings were you wanted to be of service to people, and that was more important than you, and that's what helped you kind of flip it. And so I think that's key. Like if you're trying to push yourself into something you don't actually care about, whatever that is, or something like if you're in a job and you have this task and you find yourself not doing those tasks over and over and over again because you're just not like in it, it's going to bring all those up to the surface and it's going to be harder to go through. So like, would you say like that is the key kind of thing, is your vision of what you wanted to do was so in line with who you were as a person that it allowed you to kind of push through?
Yes, ma'am. So spot on, Sammy. Like, I really feel like you have to find your why and your purpose. And if you keep, like you're saying, like if you keep finding excuses not to, and you've tried to push through, really look at, is it your primitive brain trying to keep you safe, which is a lie, right? Because if you just stay the same, you're going to stay stuck. Or is that you're truly just not living in your purpose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that can be true not just for your work. That can be true for your relationships, your friendships, how you show up for the people you care about, right? Like, I think, and this wasn't necessarily something we were going to get into today, but I think is important in that, like, you're a mom, you're a wife, and I think we tend to put the needs of everybody else outside of us. And so if you're feeling lost, like really kind of centering yourself into, okay, who am I as Jen? Who am I as Sammy? Separate from the world around me. And that can really help make a big impact.
Oh, this is huge. So as a mom of like older teenage boys, like my almost 50-year-old self looks back at my 20s, 30s, my gosh, even like up in my 40s, like you're kind of just going through the motions, right? Like your kids are little, like you're just trying to get through the day,
Yeah.
And then like I never stopped to think, like, am I happy? Does my job align? Like, am I feeling fulfilled? There was no time for that. Like, I had 2 crazy little boys. So now that my boys are teens and they're pivoting and they're coming into their own independence, that really gave me that time to kind of sit with myself and really think, like, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? Who do I want to be helping? How can I help? Like, things pivot.
Yeah. So in line with that, like as you were kind of going through, your journey of trying to figure out how to treat your vocal cords, try to figure out how you might be able to kind of work through and process this, how important was the community around you in kind of continuing to push you forward, and then also helping to support to push you into kind of this awakening of I can now do this thing? Because yes, you did it on your own. I don't want to minimize like the work that you did for yourself, but I think, did you have a strong community around you also kind of validating those feelings that you were realizing on your own?
So it's kind of sad, maybe, because I don't think I told people. Like, I never, I'm like the type A, you push through and you just do it. So the only person that saw my weakness was my husband, who has always been my rock, my support. And he's just the sweetest man in the world, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm having such a bad day, like I'm just struggling, and he's like, honestly, babe, like I don't really hear it. And I'm like, like he just was, So anyways, he's the only one that I really would open up about it, and I really try. This is sad again, where I wouldn't really even do that very often. So I think that is a good life lesson, Sammy, that really your community is there, and those are your true people. They want to help you. They want to be there to support you, and you don't have to do it alone. And I wish I would have tapped into that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I think too, it's sometimes, even if it's not a health-related thing, if you've got this dream of something that you want to do and you just keep it in your head forever, sometimes saying it to somebody makes it more real, and that can either be A, scary, or B, kind of help you be accountable to be like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about this crazy thing. What do you think? And the feedback you get could go either way, but sometimes saying it out loud is the best thing you can do, because it will actually help you. Now it's not just this thing in your head, it's something that you've said to somebody, and now maybe you need to actually do it.
Yeah, okay, now that's super true. Again, I did not. I'm a bad example of this. But when I started this, but hopefully I can help other women.
Yeah.
Right? So when I did first, so when COVID had happened and the clinic shut down for 6 weeks, it was quiet. I really realized, oh my gosh, I like just waking up when I want. I'm physically exhausted, and I didn't even know it because I never stopped. And so I just kind of started journaling. So maybe if someone doesn't have a team or an outlet, or you don't know how to communicate with them right, like I didn't, but I would journal it. And so I started journaling, what do I want my life to look like? What pieces of my life do I like that I want to keep, and where would I like to see a shift? And so really it was journaling. And then I did go to my husband and we talked, and he was like, well, okay, don't quit your day job right now. But yeah, you go for it. So that's kind of how that went down.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so what is on the horizon? What are you looking forward to? It's been a couple of years since you've been doing this now, right? Since you've been kind of leaning into the speaking and the coaching and whatnot. So what are you excited for in the next few years? And how are you going to continue to challenge yourself to continue to grow in the way that you serve people?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the first thing, like just being on podcasts like that was like, woo, look at me, I'm doing it. So right now I'm still working, like as a chiropractor, and then I do my side business in my other hours, like I just work a few days a week, and then I'm doing that. So my goal is to, and if any of my patients are listening, please don't worry. But like my goal is to just kind of come down on the physical hours where I'm at a clinic and do more of just supporting and mentoring women on their journey with starting their own business in their homes, right? Like how that looks when you have kids and things are crazy, and how to time block and how to find your why and what are you looking for.
It looks like this. If you're watching this on video, it looks like this. I have not unpacked my office, and we've been in this house for 5 months. That's what it looks.
That's how it looks. You just get going.
But
you do it.
We do what we do. I love that. I think that's great. And I think as a chiropractor, as somebody who thinks, about whole health, whole body health, just the path that you went on to try to figure out how to best serve your body, it makes sense because for a lot of us, it manifests in a physical way, even though it's stuff we need to deal with in just how we process in our life. So I think that's such a natural progression and seems like would be a really, really great fit for you. I love that. Well, I really appreciate you coming today and being vulnerable and sharing about who you are. So if people do want to connect with you, Jen, and learn more about your story and kind of what you're up to, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the best way is just on Instagram. My Instagram's Food to the Rescue, and there's a period in between each word. And then just from there, like if you need to send me a message, that's totally fine. Yeah.
I love that. Well, we will link everything up in the show notes, including the resources, the Mel Robbins book, all of that at easystylewithsammy.com/30. Oh, shoot. I just had it and now I lost it. easystylewithsammy.com/37. I don't want to give the wrong link. But Jen, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you, Sammy. It was my pleasure.
I really appreciate Jen coming on today to talk about her experience and what she's been through and how it's shaped the way that she's pushing through and doing the things that she really, really enjoys in life. So I hope you got some inspiration from that and kind of what your next steps are, whether it's in your personal life, with your friendships, with your family, whether it's with your job, how you advocate for yourself at your job, and how you can just do the things that you love to do the best. So I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe wherever you're watching this episode or listening to it. We're on YouTube and everywhere that you stream, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single episode. And again, make sure you head on over to the show notes at easystylewithsammy.com/37. That's where you can grab all of the resources. And share this episode with somebody that you think might need to be inspired to kind of push through a block that they need to overcome. And finally, if you have any people that you know in your world that would be great guests that have inspiring stories to share, we'd love to have them. We have some gentlemen coming up on the podcast. We have a married couple coming up on the podcast. So we'd love to talk to anybody who just really wants to share and be vulnerable with what they're going through and how it's really helped them build the best dreams and life for themselves. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.